Steven. That's Tiffany. That's JJ. There's Erock. There's Lloyd. We're from Just Got Played, and we are gaming through the alphabet. All right, so what does that mean, gaming through the alphabet? We're going through the alphabet from A to Z, and maybe we'll throw in some numbers at the end. And we're going to tell you our favorite published game that starts with that letter from each one of us. You'll hear that. And then we'll also tell you the highest rated game on BoardGameGeek. So we've done a couple of these videos already. You can look in the links down below. You can check out those videos if you missed them. As we publish new videos, I'll put the links to those down below as well. There's also a link to our Discord channel. So, come over there and tell us what your favorite games are. But all right, so let's get started. We're going to be doing letters G, H, and I today. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Erock.
All right, starting out with the letter G. I have a very strong feeling I'm going to cross over with the geek. So instead, we're going to start with the Lloyd. Mr. Lloyd, what is your letter G?
So my letter G is an oldie. It was one of the games that kind of got me into the hobby stuff, because it wasn't Catan, didn't like that. It wasn't Power Grid, no. The one that kind of, one of the ones that first got me into it was Guillotine. And so Guillotine is a kind of a light, entry level game. You're basically in the French Revolution, and you are all playing rival executioners, and you are collecting heads. So there's 4 or 5 different colors that are different types of nobles. And there's some non-nobles in there, which you don't want to kill. And basically the whole game revolves around trying to set, collect, and get the highest point heads. And you basically have a handful of cards that shuffle the lines, makes people lose the ones that they just caught or just collected. And it's just kind of a very light take that. There's some tomfoolery where you give people negative points and whatnot, but and there's a couple steel cards, but it's basically just trying to figure out the best way to reorder the line on your turn, or to mess up the line for other people's turns, and basically count cards and try to figure out what's the best way to get it. But I played it with I don't know how many different groups, and I still have my copy that's all beat up, just because I've taken it traveling with us, and we would sit in a laundromat in New York at my aunt's place, and while the laundry was going, we'd play a couple games of it. So Guillotine, light, simple, quick, and I still pull it out every once in a while and play it with new people just to introduce them to something else.
I played that game a while ago, right? It was one of the earlier games I played when I was getting back into the hobby. But I don't see it getting played anymore. Like I was just at a convention, I didn't see it. I go to some game nights, I don't see it. I mean, that doesn't mean it's not really getting played. I just don't see it. So I'm curious.
I still have Guillotine. I've played a ton of this on drunken nights with my boys. 2 o'clock in the morning, throwing down some Guillotine. It's been a long time since I played it, but
there you go. I'm not one of his drunken boys. That's why I'm saying it.
Yes, neither are they anymore. So there.
Be thankful for that. I think that's probably a good thing for you.
Bear with me a sec. This llama's going to drive me crazy. Hold on.
My llama.
I was wondering what that was.
It keeps encroaching
up,
and it looks like semi-pornographic. So I
thought it was not safe for work.
This
there.
is
that's not it.
What was going on?
Oh.
Yeah.
That's Lamb Chop.
Oh, you're right, Lamb Chop.
Oh, Lamb Chop.
This is the song that.
Yes. So
exactly.
Sorry about that. So moving on with the G. How about you, Steven? What do you got for G?
So I'm going to call it a classic at this point, because it's 27 years old and it goes in and out of print. People are clamoring for a reprint of the big box. This is probably, I'll just say, it's my favorite area control game, and it is El Grande.
No, that was my E.
Yeah, but that's because you broke the rules. L just means the. Well, since you already mentioned it, I won't belabor it. But I love how you have to make a decision, and that decision is the card that I'm going to play this round is either going to let me grab one of the earlier actions, or it's going to allow me to put out more caballeros or move more caballeros from my provinces to my court. And then, and you got to have those in your court to be able to put them out on the board. And, there's the whole thing about where's the king, and can I move the king to my advantage to lock down an area? And where is my Grande so that I can score more points? And then just the whole Castillo, right? Putting the caballeros in the Castillo and then airdropping them into some area, there's just, I don't know. I played a lot of area control games, and most area control games have some other mechanisms glommed on top of them, right? But this one is really just basically area control. And I like I said, it's got to be my favorite. Plays up to 5, and it's pretty quick. El Grande.
It was my E, so I absolutely love it. In fact, I just played Dominant Species just a few days ago, and you can see like the roots of El Grande in that, because the most important thing going on is that row of cards, and you got to get on one of those cards and play it for effect. So, yeah, absolutely. El Grande is a fantastic choice for the letter E. How about you, JJ? What do you have for G?
Okay, let's see. Hopefully I got my notes correct this time. All right, so G. All right, so what you do for my game, it's pretty good. It's a pretty good G game. You have a piece of paper and you write these dots on it, okay? And then you connect the lines together, and then if you make a box, you write your initial in the box, and then anybody heard this game?
I would tell you no, but I can't remember the name of the game.
It's on every restaurant menu, kids menu ever.
Oh, yeah, the kids menu game, Matt. Okay, wait, hold on a second. Here we go. All right, so G. Now, my runner-up for G was Gaia Project, because I'm a big Terra Mystica fan. You put space on top of that. I like it. You get to do a bunch of this stuff. But I went kind of safe with this one. My G is Great Western Trail. I don't know if you guys heard this game before.
Yep.
But yeah, you got deck building, you got little traveling around on the board. You take your cows to the train, you put them on the train, you move the train. So many different things to do, and I have not tried all the different ways to win. And you get to build up all your different things. You're building a deck, you're traveling. The board changes because you got to put your little buildings out on the little trail, and then it gets long at the end, but it's still a good mix. I love Great Western Trail. Haven't played any expansions yet, but it's a classic for me, and I enjoy playing it every single time.
So pro tip: first time I played Great Western Trail, I think I was like 4th, right? So I was going 4th, and the people in front of me took like all the good cows, and I'm like, maybe I just won't get cows. I'll do a strategy where I'm doing the buildings and trying to move over the buildings to get points. No, you have to get cows. That did not work well at all. Pro tip: get some damn cows.
Well, you got to get the cows because you have to go deliver them on the trail every single time, or put them on the train every single time. So yeah, that was rough. Did you know you could wipe the board though and get new cows? Yeah.
Well, I mean, I vaguely remember, but yeah, I have since played the game again and done much better. But I do sometimes quibble with a game where if it presents something like it's a viable path to victory, it should be a viable path to victory. And there was nothing that obviously told me that I couldn't do what I was doing, right? There are a lot of games where you can not focus on the main mechanism because there's plenty of other point salad-y stuff going on. And I did all the other stuff and I got crushed. Like moving the train or whatever it is and getting stuff that way and getting the buildings or whatever. But yeah, I got crushed. It was not pretty.
Yeah, I just really like it because it's not all about deck building. It's not all about traveling on the trail. You got to do a little bit of everything just so you're good. But like once you check a couple of boxes, then you can kind of focus on something else. So if you just stick on just building cows the whole time, you're not going to really get any of the points anywhere. It's not going to help, if you don't draw all those cows in your hand. It's good to have.
And you're going to land on everybody else's buildings the whole way through there.
That too. You're going to have to do that. You're going to have to stop and pay other people. But it's like you got to do all these little things that go together, and then everything matches up, and then it helps you win in the game. So I like the fact that a lot of the deck builders with the board, you have to like build your deck up, and you're not really concentrating on the board. Doesn't really change too much. It stays the same. But what's nice about Great Western Trail is you have to mix about everything. You can't forget about one thing. I like my combos. So you have to be able to combo and do everything together. Say, I got a handful of like 3 gray cows or white cows or whatever. It's like I can't do anything with that when I get to the train station. But on my way, guess what? I can turn 2 of those cows in for some money, on the way if I had built my board correctly. So you have to just, plan all that stuff together. That's why I love that it mixes all together. There's no effects on the actual cows in the deck, but manipulating the board and then it gets you something. I love that part.
Well, fun Steven fact, I have literally herded cows on a trailer and then driven that vehicle to a slaughterhouse to take cows. So I feel like I should just be the start player every time I play this game.
I think that is the last person to load cows on a flatbed and take them to the. Yeah, I think that's it. Excellent.
That got a little too real for me. That got a little too real.
Yeah. Well, you eat beef, do you?
I eat beef.
I actually don't anymore, and that's part of the reason why.
Oh.
Anyway, sorry. Yes,
well, I bet there's somebody out there. I bet there's somebody out there that can tell you that they have perfected the carpenter strategy or whatever, so they never use a cow. So
no, they can't. You have to get a cow. Trust
me.
Please
tell us why Stephen is wrong.
Challenge accepted.
Indeed, yes. Okay, that's another great game. Babe, what do you got for the letter G?
So I have a little-known game called Gloomhaven.
Little known.
There it is.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really not very well known. It was a tiny Kickstarter. It didn't really sell much. Yeah, no, Gloomhaven is a huge game, and everyone's heard of it. And if you haven't played it, you should, because it's phenomenal. It might not be for you, but you need to at least play it so that you know. But it's a puzzle game is really what it is. Don't look at it like a dungeon crawler, because it's not really. It's more of a puzzle game, and it's you and your friends, or you by yourself, working along with yourself to get through these puzzles that the creators and developers throw at you. And so you need to loot a chest by the end of a thing, and it turns out the chest is behind the biggest monster in the dungeon. And you have to figure out how is this one going to be a gauntlet where you're going to just charge through and try to loot the chest and then everything else be damned, or is this one where you're going to try to kill everything and actually play it the safe way, or like what are you going to do? So it's really cool, and it's an interesting game the way that you do all of your turns. You have a hand of cards and you play 2 cards each turn, a top action and a bottom action, one from each, and you take those 2 actions. Usually one is a movement, one is an action, but not always, depending on what kind of cards that you've created in your deck. And by the time once you're out of cards and you can't do that anymore, you have to get rid of a card or 2. I think it depends on how you rest and how you get your cards back. But you have to get rid of some cards, reshuffle your hand, and then start over. And that's your timer to the end of the game. So it's cool. It's a lot of fun. It's super wide as far, like the world is super rich and you can do a lot of things in it. So there's a lot of time that you can get out of playing it. We've played it almost the whole campaign on the table, and we have played the whole campaign on the computer. So it's a great game.
I've never heard this described as a puzzle instead of a dungeon crawler. So that's interesting. I like your take on it.
I agree with her 100%. I mean, yes, there is a dungeon. That's how it looks. It presents itself as a dungeon crawler, but really it's a puzzle. How do I make these cards work to get me through the end of this scenario? Because it's not like something like Descent where you just go until you die or you kill the thing or whatever. It's way more about, I need to make these cards last. Because you can do things like some of the cards are going to have huge effects on them, but they're instant burn cards, which means now that card's out of your deck. And that's one less card that you have to cycle your deck and stay alive during this thing. And some of them, don't. Some of them are just rinse and repeat kind of cards. But you have to manage all this because, like she said, every time you go through it, you lose a card. You can choose to lose a card if you long rest, or you randomly lose a card if you short rest. But any way you look at it, every time you go through your deck of cards, which is only like 8 to 10 cards anyway, every time you go through that, you're losing a card and you need to survive. And when you're out of cards, you are done. You are exhausted. So that's really the puzzly nature of this game. I think it's an amazing way of turning what would be a dungeon crawl into an incredible puzzle. And then on top of all that, even you do play 2 cards, but you play one of them on top, and all the cards have a number on them, and that's your initiative. And that's how fast you're going to go. So you talk with everybody and kind of come up with a plan, and then you flip your cards out, and then you turn over the monster cards. And they will go before you when it's wrong. They will go after you when it screws you up. Like, whatever you do, you basically have this grand plan every turn, and then flip some cards and realize, nope, that's not going to work. Now I gotta, what can I do with these 2 cards I played, kind of a thing. So it's really good to leave yourself options if you can, but you can't always do that, because sometimes you only have 3 cards left before you got to shuffle again and lose a card. And, well, this is what I got. I mean, how many times, babe, you say, well, I got 2 cards and I'm playing them. That's,
what I got.
That's Gloomhaven. I'm not trying to jump on her bandwagon, and just to cut out any suspense, this is also my G game. Yes, my G game is Gloomhaven. Absolutely.
And also the board game.
And also
number
the
1 rated game.
Currently number 1 of all time,
Gloomhaven,
as it has been for a few years. Yes. I had a strong feeling I was going to cross over here. I'm glad Babe came with me on this journey, because it's absolutely fantastic. I just want to say that the original Gloomhaven is my number 1. It's my G. It's the one that's number 1 on there. But if I was going to recommend this to anybody, I would say either get it on Steam or play Gloomhaven Jaws of the Lion first. Either one of those is really going to give you a much better introduction into what's going on there than just jumping into the 50-foot pool trying to figure out how to do everything, how everything works, how the monsters move, who they attack. That's all fairly complicated. But
the monster movement is.
Yes. The rest of it's just, little rules for this and this is what happens when you get poisoned. This is what happens when you get stunned. But the monster movement, that is confusing. There are literally flow charts that you can download from the Geek to walk you through that. And you still don't always get it right. I've had the flow chart in front of me and be like, all right, they're going to go here and here and here. And then like our buddy Big Head's like, no, it's not. It's going to go over here. I'm like, like it's not easy. So like I said, I highly recommend the Steam version or Jaws of the Lion. Steam takes care of all that on the back end, and Jaws of the Lion very slowly introduces you scenario by scenario into the more complicated mechanisms.
Yeah, Jaws of the Lion frequently goes on sale. I mean, just last Prime Day, it was $20. And you can carry that content into Gloomhaven?
You can take the characters into Gloomhaven and play with them.
Yeah, so it's a great starter, yeah.
I agree, 100%. Gloomhaven, yeah, babe, that's a 3-way crossover for us again. Terrific Pace killer, babe. That's right.
Well, that goes down the G's pretty quick.
Yes, indeed. Well, that was our G list. Next up, we have the letter H. So let's switch up the order this time. I'm going to go first. So my H game is a game that I played for the first time about 3 days ago, and I loved it. And that game is Heaven and Ale. This has been on my radar for quite a while. It's just something that it's like always just been like, that looks interesting. It's a tile laying game, and the actual mechanisms of the game aren't that hard, but playing it well is incredibly hard. All right. So basically it's a game about making beer at a monastery with monks, although it is incredibly abstracted out from that. So don't feel like you're going to get in there and feel like I'm making beer and I'm drinking. No, it's not like this. It's a tile laying game. And like half the board is dark and half the board is light. And if you play a tile on the dark side, it's basically only good for money. And if you play it on the light side, it's basically good for product. And you have to somehow balance getting the money to pay for the tiles to fill up both sides of these. And meanwhile, I honestly don't even want to get into the scoring. The scoring is by far the most complicated part of this game because there are tracks for everything. Like there's a lumber track, there's a, I believe, salt track, there's a hops track, there's a wheat track. You have your monk on his own track, and all of these tracks need to get as far as possible as you're going along. And then at the very end, depending upon where your actual monk is, then you adjust all the tracks, all the markers, so that they all basically filter down to a common denominator. And from there is where you're going to get the majority of your points. Yeah, that's a little bit complicated, but the game itself isn't that hard. It's just you go around in a circle, you go as far as you want, you pay for the tile you land on, and when you get to the end, that's the end of the round, and we start a new round. That's Heaven and Ale. I thought it was great. Stephen, what is your H?
All right. Well, everybody likes fireworks. So my pick for the letter H is Hanabi. Although I know somebody who speaks a little bit of Japanese who pronounced it Hanabi, but everybody else I've heard it pronounced Hanabi, including the publisher who is German. It is a cooperative game, and I have the tile version, but the basic version is cards. So you have a hand of cards, and they're just face out. So you can't see what your cards are, but everybody else at the table can. And basically on your turn, you can give somebody a clue. You can tell them which cards in their hand are a specific number or which cards in their hand are a specific color. Or you can, and there's a limited number of clues available, or you can play a card. And the cards are climbing. So you have different colored stacks and they need to go from 1 to 5. And if you play out of order, that's a mistake. And if you make 3 mistakes, you lose the game. So you want to get as far along as you can, without making mistakes. And so it's a co-op game, and it is one of the really good ways to defeat the alpha player problem. One, because, well, there's limited communication, because the actual communicating is within the game rules. You can't communicate outside of the game rules. But also, you literally can't alpha the game because you don't know what your cards are, right? So you could think something is a great play, like, why aren't you doing that? Why aren't you cluing that? But it's because you don't see your cards. You don't know why they did that. There's a better reason why they did that. So it's really quick. It's interesting to play with new people. It's really interesting to play with experienced people and new people, right? Because new people will make those mistakes that you just learn playing, card games, right? And I've seen some groups that sort of develop a meta around the game, like, oh, you tell me I have a 5, I move it to my left, and now you know that I have a 5, and I won't forget it, etc. And I know it almost kind of feels like cheating to me, right? People will be like, well, if it's my turn to discard a card because there aren't any clues left, and you get a clue back for discarding a card, I'll put it at the edge. That means if I don't have anything to do, I'm going to discard this card. Like, well, that's sort of illegal communication, but it's also sort of within the rules, So just don't play the game like that.
Invalidated.
Right? Yes, exactly. Like just have fun with the game. Don't like try to seriously game this game, because the rules are not designed for it to be gamed or to prevent it being gamed, right? Just play the game for fun. And so again, light game, cooperative game, defeats the alpha player problem. Hanabi.
Good co-op game. I like the hidden information in that I can't see what I have. That's an interesting spin on it.
And you can forget what somebody told you.
Yes,
which is fun and frustrating.
How about you, babe? What's your H?
So my H is a little game. It's got a little footprint, and it is called Habitats. And it is a really great little tile game where you are trying to create. I don't know if I think it's supposed to be like a preserve or something.
Yeah,
right?
a zoo, a preserve. Yeah.
Okay. So you're creating a little location with animals, and you're trying to make sure that the animals have the their basic needs are met. And so that means having the habitat that they need. And so that might mean having mostly rocks with some water, or having dry desert area or whatever. And you're basically just placing these cards so that you're trying to meet the tiles requirements that are already placed with new tiles that you're laying out. If this sounds familiar, it's because it was used as a pairing to create Ark Nova. No, not Ark Nova.
Nova Luna.
Nova Luna. That's the Nova. Nova Luna. So I know words get jumbled in my brain. Sorry. So Nova Luna, if you've played that one and not Habitats, and if you then played Habitats, you'd be like, wait, this is part Nova Luna. You would be correct, because they use that they actually merged 2 different games, Habitats and another one that I don't remember the name of.
It was Patchwork. Uwe Rosenberg got in touch with Carneva and Morsel and said, I really like your game. I'd like to design a game about it, or from the system or whatever. So that's right, babe. You're on it.
So Habitats, it's super cool and super fun and really not too heavy.
Yeah, I agree. The only thing I disagree with is the small footprint, maybe. I think the box is pretty small as far as it goes, but once you get 4 people laying out their own tiles.
That's true. We don't usually play 4.
it gets a little big with everybody's area. But I mean, it's just tiles.
That's true.
It's just a bunch of tiles, and you kind of go around like picking them up and stuff. So that's a good choice, babe. That almost made my H. So well done.
Thanks.
Mr. Lloyd, what is your H, sir?
So my H is, there's a video on the channel talking about it already, and it is Horrified. And I'm going to go with both of them. I know I went through this versus video and said they're not the same game, but for all intents and purposes, they do the same type of thing. So if you get one or the other, it's you're getting the same experience out of it. It's just different kind of mechanisms here and there on the different monsters. But essentially, this is kind of like a cross between like Arkham Horror and like Pandemic. You are different types of investigators, similar to Arkham Horror. They all have their own little special movement rules to allow them to do extra like special actions. Like they can go to a monster space, or they can go directly to a particular location, or different little things that kind of set them apart. But the idea is you pick 2, 3, 4 monsters if you want. And depending on which game it is, it's either the universal monsters like Frankenstein's monster, the creature from the Black Lagoon, or if you get the American monsters, it's all cryptids like Bigfoot and the Jersey Devil. And essentially each of the monsters has their own little mini game that you need to complete in order to defeat them. So every turn you're gonna get 4 or 5 actions depending on which character you have. And it's very simple. You go around the board, you pick up, there's like 3 different types of items in the game. They're just color coded and they have different values on them. And the puzzles are going to use those different items to do different things. Like the creature from the Black Lagoon, the items move you along a path in a boat. If you're hunting the werewolf, then the specific items are going into a mixture to make a Wolfman serum that you have to complete before you can go fight the Wolfman. And it's fairly simple. It's fairly light. It plays pretty quick. And it's, I think, a little bit more thematic than Pandemic. Pandemic is very abstracted out. You're just picking up cubes. This has a little bit more going for it. And then the mix of monsters kind of changes up how you're going to play and how you put those monsters together. Because if you pair them up to make it really difficult, you can get 2 or 3 monsters that are all looking for the same item type, which makes it very difficult to use. So they might all be looking for the blue items, which I think are all like science items. So I just like the mix and match play that you can do. Like I said, American monsters or Universal, they just have different monster types, but it's essentially the same base game, just with different puzzles mixed in. I like the puzzly aspect of it.
Cool.
I've
never actually played this, but I've never heard of anybody that played it and didn't like it. So good choice. And
I went to a gaming group and played this game randomly, and I agree with you on the puzzle aspect. I don't like Pandemic because it can get very systematic, but yeah, the puzzly aspect of having to defeat each monster a different way is very, very much fun.
Nice. And before we get to the geek to round out our H's, JJ, what do you have for H?
Me? Okay. I think I got it right this time. All right. So my H is kind of, I didn't really have like a big standout H. I'm picking this game because I spent so much money on it to get all the fancy stuff. Played it one time, and the person I played with solely because they didn't play it very often was like, well, I guess I got to buy everything now. And it was going back on Kickstarter. So I got the big old box. It's literally sitting in the box that it came in because I have nowhere else to put it. It's on its own little shelf. And the game is Heroes of Land, Sea, and Air.
Oh, so, very big game. Nice.
Yeah, big game with the mat and everything. Very big is an understatement. So Heroes of Land, Sea, and Air, I believe the one I had plays up to 7 people, so you can get the whole crew together and play the big version. And it has all the different races, all the different fantasy races that you can think of. I even have the one with the mer people and the sky folk. So you're on the board, very much like Blood Rage. Each race has a different ability, and every race has their little peon soldiers, and there's soldier people, and then there are big generals. So each race has a different general with it. 3 of them each. They each have their own little ship. They each have their own little flying machine, and then I can't even remember what else because I haven't played with all the expansions. I still only play with the base game because it doesn't get to the table very often. It's very much a 4X as 4X gets. So you have to explore. You have to, I forgot what the other 3 X's are or whatever.
Exploit.
Expand. Exploit.
Yeah, everybody knows what those words. Yeah, all that stuff. So I played this once with my friend and then once on my version. Each time nobody was very aggressive because everybody knew once you lose a battle, people come in and swoop in and take you out. So we didn't really get very combative. So everybody kind of did one of the other explore to end the game because you have to explore all the different the face down pieces on all on the different lands. So each person has their own starting land is divided up into like 7 areas with like 4 different regions on it. And everybody did that and kind of stuck to their own area and didn't really go out into other people's, or they were making deals like, I just need to build a tower over here. So don't attack me. I'm just going to build it and go out. But it's like, you can't just do that because once you build all your towers, the game ends. So it's kind of, we figure out pretty quickly we needed to be very much more combative. But getting everybody back together was tough. And then, the big COVID hit. So nobody was going out anywhere. But I'm very much looking forward to trying out all the different races. You know me, I like my asymmetrical powers. So I got to try out all the different races because it was my game. So I chose the Sky People before anybody could pick it during my game. So everybody's like, oh, of course, JJ gets to be up in the sky where nobody can reach him. So it was very funny because I was just dropping down wherever I wanted. But yeah, getting around on the board is kind of tough it's tough because you don't want to offend anybody. As soon as you leave your area, everybody's looking at you. So once we get more combative, I'm pretty sure I'll like it even more. And then we got to get all expansions because you have like siege weapons and all this stuff you can add to it. I haven't even looked at that part because we didn't even get to, more than a playthrough half explanation. So people were just getting it through after we had got done with it. It was pretty much on the last rounds. We're like, oh, we should be fighting more often. So interesting. That's what happened in both games. So I'm going to play it again. But yeah, it's still pretty much in the box with just dust collecting on it because it's such a huge table hog. But love it. So I bought a table just with that game in mind.
This is Gameland Games, right?
Who, the makers?
The publisher, yeah, it's Gameland
Games,
right? Yeah, right. Like they're famous for the Tiny Epic series.
Tell you one thing right now, Steve. We haven't known each other long.
The opposite of Tiny. This is epic.
Yeah, Jim Jam does not remember names, so I'm not going to remember a name. If you tell me something, I'll believe you.
I'm pretty sure I have this right. They made their sort of name with Tiny Epic Kingdoms, right? A little tiny box 4X game.
Yes.
And they've made many, like a 10 maybe, Tiny Epic games. I have them all. Big Tiny Epic fan. But, at some point, I guess people were like, why so tiny? And they're like, hold my beer.
So
I've never actually played this game, but I've seen it at every convention I've ever gone to. Just a big table, people playing all day long. I know you're not supposed to say this, but it's kind of like Warcraft 3, the board game without the license, basically. But
yes, it is.
This is definitely a con game, not a game to keep in the shipping box on your shelf.
Hey, listen.
How do you know
if I've got going on 2 people that will say I will play it, I will dig the box out. I have it in the box because I can just throw it in the car and it doesn't fit anywhere else. But still, if people want to play it, I will bring it.
Well, I don't know what the geek is going to say the H is on this one. So, Stephen, why don't you fill us in?
Well, we've talked about it before. I don't know. Maybe it was the top-rated game from some year. But, and again, not entirely sure how to pronounce it, is Le Havre. The harbor.
Oh, that would be an excellent game for the letter L. Please continue.
So you're bad at language, by the way. so it's the harbor.
Yeah.
So it's a T game? I don't know. So none of us actually has played Lav, but I know a few things about it, and it's deceptively simple. On your turn, you move your boat, and you load resources according to where your boat is. And then you either take resources or you move your worker. There, I just taught you how to play the game, basically. But it is a lot more complicated. It's going to take you more than 2 hours probably to play. You can, with your worker, you can go to buildings and you could buy them to put them sort of in your private tableau versus them being in the city of Le Havre itself. But then other people can use your buildings. And that probably what I think is the interesting thing about this game is your worker just stays there till you move it. So Lloyd could build this awesome building in his tableau, and I could send my worker there and pay him, whatever, a coin or something to use his building, and then just leave my worker sitting there for 5, 6, whatever turns. There's very little he can do. In fact, the only way I know that he can get rid of the worker is by selling the building back to the city.
I'll destroy it.
Yeah, basically, right? Because that returns my worker. So you got to be pretty desperate. But I think that is the sort of meanness to the game, because you can look ahead and you can see where boats are going to be, you can see what resources are going to be available, but you could just say I'm just going to block this action that's out, and then I guess other people need to build other actions that are super cool so they can do those, or you can move your worker to do those, and so I think that's where the tension comes from in this game, based on just me watching people play it. And again, we were going to play this and catch up, but we never got a chance, but it's still
Not
on my
yet.
list. Yep, we will do this one day.
Shame on you.
I actually bought this one time on Steam. I was like, man, this is on sale. I'm going to learn Le Havre. Awesome. I was a game and a half in before I realized it was the other game. Like
Le Havre Inland Port, which
yes.
is not very good.
It's not
I got
very
a free
good.
copy of that. It's not
agree.
very good. Yes.
Like a game and a half into Steam, I'm like, I don't see what all the hubbub is about. This isn't very good. So.
Yeah. You got Gloomhaven, the Kmart edition. That's not Gloomhaven. Come on.
Right.
Blue Light Special.
Well, I'm a big fan of games like 1775 and Aeon's End, where you might get back-to-back turns. So, for the letter I, I'm going right back to JJ. What you got?
What? Okay, so I picked a... notes are correct. Yeah. Okay, good. We're good. So I picked a very little known game. My runner-up was Innis, very much a Celtic game. Another one of those area control. You got to battle people. Very pretty game. I've only played it once. I thought it was pretty good. It's still on there. But I went to a game you guys might not have heard of. It's very old, so it's not very. It's kind of popular. It's called Imperial Settlers. Very much one of my. It's just it. How should I say this? There's games I play 2 rounds and I'm like, this is for me. I look at the person whoever brought it and I'm like, you did a good job. Keep up the good work, because I was like, all right, I'm hooked. And as pretty much this whole time we've been doing all these videos, asymmetrical guy right here. So I need to try all the different races. I came in late to the series, the Imperial Settlers, so I didn't know what all the races were, and I didn't realize there was like a bunch of expansions. So I'm like, but I've always been trying to get another copy of this because I don't know many people that have it, and I'm always trying to catch it on sale, but I keep missing it because it never really goes on sale, which is really annoying. It's like $5 or $10. But if anybody has like a cheap copy that's still really good, barely played, I will definitely take it. Imperial Settlers. You have all the different, Romans, Japanese, all the Egyptians, Atlanteans, which is random, but I like it. I like what they did there. Not a real race, but still good. And they all have their different player powers. Shocker. And you're just trying to build your tableau, and you can interact with other people. Like, hey, I need to do this, or you can attack people, but you don't have to. Kind of sort of helps you a little bit depending on race you're. I think the Romans want to be very aggressive with attacking other people, something like that. But tableau builder, different player powers, and doesn't take a whole lot of space. I believe that's what it was. You don't take a lot of space, but yeah, tableau building, asymmetrical powers. That's my game.
It's very good game, very popular.
I remember when Ignacy Srevichik, the publisher from Portal, he brought this game over to Dice Tower Con, maybe 3 or 4, I can't remember which one. And it was the first time it had been in America, like it was still in production or whatever. And so it was just getting passed around the con, like it would hit the library for 2 seconds before somebody grabbed it and play it. And I think it's a really solid game. I have heard, and I haven't played it, but I have heard that a lot of people say that Imperial Settlers, what is it, like Invaders from the North or something?
Well,
better.
The new one is like Empires of the North. Imperial Settlers is basically 51st State. Those 2 games are basically the same. And 51st State has a new master set out there. So if you are interested in this game, I would recommend going for the big master set of 51st State.
Yeah. Well, I think Imperial Settlers is simpler and more streamlined, actually. Although I do think 51st State is also a good game. Also, in the swag bag at Dice Tower Con, we all got Imperial Settlers Rollin' Right.
Rollin' Right, yes, sir.
So, yeah,
That's right.
There's plenty of copies of that floating around town if you're interested in that.
Indeed. So, good game, JJ. Thank you very much. Lloyd, what do you have for the letter I?
So there's going through my list. There's a handful of letters where I chose the game immediately because it was the only one that I could pick. Like my eyes were so slim that like that one was bolded because I was like, I'm never going to go back to this letter and try to debate because I only played this. And that like the eyes were so thin for me. So I went with ICECOOL, which is
nice.
Little penguin flicking dexterity game. And funny story is when this game came out, or when it was coming out, I was at Gen Con in the booth next to him promoting my game that was going to be on Kickstarter. And I was like, oh, these poor, I don't know where they're from, Norway, Sweden. They didn't speak much English. And I was like, they had this goofy game and they had like thousands of copies. And I was like, oh, these poor guys, they're going home with everything. They were sold out the first day. Like the first day they were gone. And I was like, I don't know anything about the game industry. I am stupid. But I played it and I was like, I see why this game is amazing. Basically, you have the box opens up. It makes like a little 3D school. And one player is the hall monitor, and the other players are trying to collect their fish from above each doorway that connects each of the like 4 outer boxes and 1 little inner box. And you're just trying to flick your little, they're like Weeble Wobbles. And if you watch really good people play, they can bank shots, they can make them hop, they can make them do backflips and go through like 4 rooms at once. And it's crazy. I, get them around, barely. And basically you play the game and I think each person is the hall monitor once, and then that's the end of the game. And you count up how many fish you scored in each round. And I think the hall monitor gets points somehow by collecting other people's fish when he hits them or something. I forget how the hall monitor scores. But
collects their cards.
Yeah. Okay, that's what it is. Yeah. He gets their passes. Yeah. So ICECOOL, and I don't know what ICECOOL 2 is, but apparently that's a thing. But that was my eye.
It's a way to make a giant version of it.
It's basically more of the same, and you can combine them. I am surprised at the number of people that don't get ICECOOL. There's high school. ICECOOL, high school.
Oh.
Yeah. Okay. I was this many days old when I learned.
I saw this. Do they have zero ice? Cool. Zero cool. No. Okay, never mind. No Hackers fans here.
All right. Excellent. I think that's the first dexterity game that made our ABC's list. Not recording everything, but it might be. But good pick, Lloyd. All right. So. Yep. Babe, what do you got for the letter I?
So this was a game that I've played one time many years ago, but I remember really enjoying it, and I've tried to buy it a few times since then, but the copy that I played was the copy with the plastic bits, and now I can only find the copy with the cardboard bits, and so I won't buy them because I'm spoiled. But that game is Ingenious. And Ingenious is a domino type game where you are just laying tiles and trying to expand on the colors that are already on the board, and you're scoring points based on that. And it's a pretty simple light game. I mean, it's fun. It's challenging depending on your partner, I guess, the people that you're playing with. But I thought it was a fun game, and it was just easy to learn and quick to play. So it was a lot of fun, and there weren't very many options for I. So I went with Ingenious.
Very much like Domino, except instead of putting like 6s and 6s, it's shapes like a purple hexagon
and colors. Yeah.
Like a red starburst or something like that, right?
Yeah. And just grow the field of that particular color or shape and score more points.
And it just goes to prove that you can't get too far in any list without Mr. Raynar. Excuse me, Dr. Rainer Knizia showing up at some point. So, Ingenious is Babe's choice. That's excellent. I will go next to last. And this was a hard letter for me too. I don't feel like there were a whole lot of really good options that I personally either played or enjoyed on the eye. But for me, ironically, JJ, my backup is also Inish. I thought that was a pretty good game. I just like Innovation better. This is probably the only Carl Chuddock maybe that will make this whole entire series. I guess we'll see. But Innovation is basically it's a civilization game in a card game, and it kind of goes through eras like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and you have to like work your way through the eras to get to the next era, and the cards get progressively more powerful, and they have a really neat mechanism in there. This might have been one of the first games that actually did this, where you tuck them different ways. So if I have a card, I might tuck a card so that I can now like see the bottom of the other card or underneath it. So now I can see this one or over to this side or maybe over to that side. And I'm probably like covering my mic with all this, but basically like there's just these different ways to tuck them under each other, which cascades them. It cascades their symbols, which increases their potency for whatever you're trying to do. I think this is a fantastic 2-player game. It gets really confusing when you start adding more players than that, because a lot of it is things like, you know, I demand this kind of thing, but it's all like, well, if my symbols are better than yours or more than yours, well, now my symbols are more than yours, but not more than yours. And you put 3 or 4 people in this game, it gets really confusing when you start really using the mechanisms. But I think for 2 players, this game is fantastic. It's one of those games, and this is kind of Carl Chuddock's thing, where it is wildly unbalanced. Wildly unbalanced. You could get a combo that just destroys the whole game. You just run out the rest of the game and win. Or you could get one of those combos and be this close to winning, and then somebody else gets a combo that just totally destroys everybody and they run out that game. That's kind of Carl Chuddock's thing, but this is a very good example of that. My game is Innovation. So
that's funny. You were talking about covering up the tiles and the cards and using the different parts of the cards or whatever. And I was thinking La Granja, and then I was like, "Oh,
yes.
G's are already passed, but not for you, man. La Granja could be your L."
That's an L game. Yes.
How to alphabet?
I have one rule: if it's in English, the us, thes, and stuff don't count. If it's not in English, I don't know what that is. That's an L to me. Anyway, we have one eye left before we get to the Geek's Choice, and that is Steven. Steven, what is your eye?
I did not have to. So what I did is I just took my list of favorite games, because I have rated games. I just started going down the list, looking for things with a letter and like, do I really like this more than whatever? And I did not have to go very far to find an eye, because I found It's a Wonderful World. And I love It's a Wonderful World. It is an excellent drafting game. I've talked before about how this, may have fired 7 Wonders for me. More often than not, I would rather play this than 7 Wonders, right? Because you're drafting cards and you're building a tableau, but it's an engine builder, right? You're building an engine, and the cards are multi-use. You have to decide, am I going to discard this card that I drafted for resources to help build another building, or am I going to use it as a building to build my empire to sort of further my goals? And you only play 4 rounds, and so you sort of start out the game like, how am I going to get anywhere in 4 rounds? So by the time the 4th round comes around, it's just resources flying everywhere and cards and points, and probably to play the game well, you do have to hate draft on somebody a little bit. Like if you let somebody just go commerce, give them all the commerce cards, they're going to run away with it. But more often than not, you'll probably need some of the resources that are on a commerce card. So you're not really hate drafting necessarily against them. You need those resources anyway. So like, I'll take this because I need those cubes, So yeah, I like so much about this game. I mean, I bought it instantly. I traded actually for it instantly after I played it the first time. And I played it several times since. I backed the corruption and something expansion on Kickstarter. I got that. I liked what that added to the game. There's a legacy component you can add to the game if you want to get that, or if you have the big mega ultra super plus edition, which I don't have. But it has just a lot of replayability because there's a lot of different empires in there. that you could play with, and then just the number of cards, of course, as well. So yeah, and because it's a drafting game, everybody sort of drafts and plays simultaneously. So it's quick. You play 7 players. It's not a slog, so, and that works well for my game group, anyway, so that's why I love It's a Wonderful World. And man, I did not have to hunt for an iGame.
Interesting. Well, we haven't played this yet, but babe, I keep telling you, like, this is the game that is supposedly 7 wonders, but different, the drafting game. So this is very high on our let's try this out list. So we'll have to get together and play it at some point. All right, Stephen, what is our letter I from the geek?
Well, if you know the internet, you know that the internet loves cats. So yes, of course, the I is the Isle of Cats. So the Isle of Cats is basically, it's a polyomino game. The theme is there's like a volcano that's erupting, and you have to go to the island to rescue these stray cats. So you have a ship, and you want to go to the island to pick up these polyomino cats to cover spaces on your ship, and you score points based on where you place them on your ship. But it's also a drafting game, and when you draft, there's a lot of interesting decisions. You have to draft crates to capture cats and put them in, but you also have to draft fish because you pay fish to buy cats off the island on the given round. But then in addition to doing that, you're putting out goals. And so you can put private goals just for you. You can play those, or you can play public goals that are for everybody. I think the public goals are worth more points, but so, if you're going to achieve that goal, maybe other people aren't, it's good for you or whatever. But I like that as the game is going on, players put out the goals that are for a decent amount of the points. So, if you like that puzzle of, it's not exactly drafting. I mean, you're buying these cats and fitting them onto a puzzle to score stuff, it's really good. And then there's also just the sort of competitive element. Like, I need a red cat, so I need to get earlier in turn order than this other person who's going to take the red cats if I don't, get in first. And yeah, it's a fun game. It is a really big box. It's really big box for how sort of light the game is. But if you have the space and you like cats, I could recommend it. And BGG certainly does.
That's interesting. We actually have 2 of those play on words games in the letter I. We have ICECOOL, High School, and I Love Cats. I Love Cats. Just saying. I can't make this stuff up, folks.
Yeah.
I think I blew JJ's mind. You all right?
Plenty of humor. Oh, God.
I make the dad jokes around here. Come on.
Yes, Dad. All right. Well, that pretty much wraps up our G, H, and I super level alphabet fantastic countdown. I want to thank you for joining us. I am Erock, also known as Juh Juh GEEEEEEEEE. We do have my babe, Tiffany, is here with us. Jim Jam, the JJ Master. We have Mr. Lloyd. And we have Stephen. All of us, part of the Just Got Played crew, and happy you all came out to join us. If you like what you're seeing, give us a click, give us a like, give us a subscribe. Come join us on a Discord. We'd love to argue with you all day long. Thanks for joining us, y'all. Happy gaming.
Yeah, and stick around for JJ's song at the end of the video.
Yes, please do.
Come on, kids, let's sing the alphabet. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, Z. Now I will never forget how to say the alphabet. That was fun.